Blocked my fiancé's jealous sister for her toxic outburst against our engagement. Now she's banned from the wedding and facing family fallout. I, 25F, have been with my now fiancé, 26 male, for a little over a year. He proposed to me back in early March, and ever since I have felt that my sister-in-law, SIL, 23F, has begun to dislike me. I found out that a few days before my fiancé proposed, my sister-in-law, SIL, overheard the conversation he was having with my mill about my ring and the proposal and completely exploded on him. She told him how it was too soon and that she was supposed to be the one to get engaged first. My fiancé and I had many conversations about marriage, and we felt getting engaged after a year was perfect for us. My Sil has been with her boyfriend, 21 male, for a little over 2 years. I didn't say anything to her about this because I didn't think it was my place, and I figured his family would have a conversation with her. Apparently there was a conversation, but when she texted my fiancé later, she basically told him that she was happy for him but was still standing firm on how she felt. Fast forward to June. I have been wanting to talk to her about why there's been a shift in her behavior towards me but didn't know how. She shot me down when I asked if she wanted to come wedding dress shopping in May. She watches all of my stuff on Instagram but never likes anything, and she's never told me congratulations. I decided yesterday to reach out to her, and when I did I prefaced that I wasn't trying to attack her or argue. I just wanted to have an open conversation about how she's feeling. I genuinely wish that I would have just left it alone, because she quite literally exploded on me. She told me that I've been disrespectful and dismissive of her boyfriend and parents on multiple occasions. She then went on to insinuate that I was probably going to divorce her brother and break his heart, and that she would be the one to pick up all the pieces and lift him up in life. And finished it off by confirming that she does talk about me behind my back because she hasn't seen me in her house to confront me. I responded to all of her points, just expressing that I've never been disrespectful, and her saying those things about her brother and I were heartbreaking. I also reiterated that we are different ages, so what makes sense for us probably won't always make sense for her. She then doubled down while beginning to curse at me and said that we have a higher chance of getting divorced since I wanted to rush into marriage, and the only reason I wanted to get engaged was because I heard her and her boyfriend argue about it 24/7. Just to preface, my fiancé and I got engaged after a year and will be getting married after 2 years. We will also be living together starting in December. She was really upset about the age thing and even said that I accused her boyfriend of bringing another girl home. The conversation was me asking if he had a sister, since neither myself nor my fiancé knew who she was, and once she confirmed that was the end of the conversation. She called me delusional and weird and finished off her message by saying my point is I'm only going to the wedding to support my brother. I immediately blocked her on everything because I felt the entire thing was toxic. I told my fiancé that I don't want her at the wedding because there's no way she thinks she can speak to me like this and still thinks she's invited. I've even been considering trashing the micro-wedding idea and just eloping. I also sent the entire conversation to my mill because I didn't want there to be any question on if what I was saying was true or just me twisting words. Now because of this, my mill told them both, my fiancé and Sil, that they have to come over next week for a family meeting, so I'll see how that goes. Part of me is upset that I even said anything because I genuinely wanted to resolve this whole thing, but the other half is happy because now I know what I've been feeling this whole time wasn't just in my head. Anyways, Ida? Update 1. I won't be present for the family meeting, which I honestly think is best. She has issues with change and I think she's used to being the center of attention a lot of the time, so I think having a one-on-one conversation with her parents and my fiancé without me there will hopefully be good. I'll find out next Tuesday evening what all went down, though I think my mill called the meeting because she sees through the conversation that I had with her daughter. There's no way for me to get through to her. Me being present would honestly just make her more angry than actually get to the bottom of what the heck is going on. Just from the conversation I tried to have with her, she was jumping from point to point, and when I would question it, she would bring up something completely different. I also told her I'm not comfortable being in the same room as her, so that could also be playing a part. I hope me sending the screenshots helped to really put her on the spot because she can't deny any of it. Update 2. Anyways, they had their family meeting at the beginning of July and I was not present for this. My fiancé filled me in on a lot of what was said, and in my opinion it went better than I expected. It went better in the sense that my in-laws tried to put my Sil in my shoes. So there were a lot of questions of how would you feel if she said that to you, or how would you feel if someone was treating you this way. With these questions she had no real answer, so no real progress there. To me that shows that she knows her behavior is bad enough that she wouldn't want to be treated that way, but not enough that she understands that she shouldn't treat me that way or anyone else. My fiancé told me that my mill told her if she said to choose between her fiancé/future and her piece of you-know-what sister, she would choose her fiancé every time. They even asked my Sil if it was reversed and my fiancé was treating her that way, what would she choose, and she immediately said, her boyfriend. So again, there's an understanding that she would never want to be treated that way, but not enough to not do it to others. I was told that my in-laws were and still are upset about the situation, so they were addressing her behavior, but I'm not sure how extensively. I know there are probably a lot of other details that I'm not aware of simply because I wasn't there, and my fiancé tried his best to relay everything back to me. At the end of the conversation, my in-laws asked if I would be willing to sit down with everyone and have a conversation on how we can move forward. Initially, I was extremely hesitant. This was a sign But eventually I decided it could possibly be a good thing and we could potentially move forward, although I was still standing firm and not wanting her at the wedding. My sil wanted to wait until her boyfriend got back, so we had to wait for that. Fast forward to last Thursday, my fiancé told me that my sil texted him saying they were doing a lunch on Sunday, yesterday, and that everyone was invited. I figured this was going to be the meeting that my in-laws were wanting to have. I told my fiancé that although I was pretty nervous about the whole thing, I was willing to go because I genuinely just wanted the whole thing to be done. It has taken a lot out of me emotionally and mentally, and so I was ready to find a way to move forward. So we get there, my fiancé and Sil's shared apartment, and I will admit that it was awkward. I felt like I was going to throw up before we walked in from the anxiety, so I was not having a good time. I spoke to everyone and hugged my in-laws, but I didn't speak to my sil, mainly because I didn't know if she was take it poorly and I also didn't really want to. My sil's boyfriend, absolute angel, cooked lunch which was really nice, and so for a bit things were calm and I was getting a little more relaxed, but not 100%. After lunch was when the talk/meeting started. My in-laws basically mediated the whole thing. A lot of the main points were they wanted things to get figured out so it wouldn't always be like this. They didn't want it to be uncomfortable for anyone. They want to be able to get together for holidays and other things, especially since kids will be in the picture sooner or later. Most of the time my sil wasn't really interested in the conversation, but once she was, it kinda just went downhill. A lot of her responses were "I'm not sorry, I said what I said." She started it by sending me that long message. She made some comments about how she was being nice because she didn't start anything when I came in the house, which made me feel like I couldn't really speak up. Like it was a warning that she was being nice but that she could flip at any moment. Anything that my in-laws said was met with pretty much the same response of "I said what I said." There was a lot of "I don't want to be her best friend," even though no one even mentioned that or asked her to, and she even told my mill that she didn't want to share her family with anyone. My sil's boyfriend chimed in at one point and brought up how I sent that message right when they were going through a bad rough patch, which I didn't know because it's not my business, but even with that happening it doesn't excuse her behavior at all. It ultimately came to a destructive end when my Phil brought how he would hope that eventually we could be on good terms and that things might change. My Sil said, "I mean okay, yeah, eventually things could change, but right now I don't like this f-bye." I can't even tell you what everyone said after that because I was in full-blown panic mode and had tunnel vision. I do remember my mill wow insert Sil's name, but that's about it. I left and went into my fiancé bedroom because I had just reached my limit and I cried. After that my fiancé and Sil got into a screaming match and I could hear my in-laws chiming in, but then my Sil started crying. I found out later this was because she felt like everyone was attacking her. My fiancé eventually came in to check on me and told me that we could leave. He just wanted me to take a moment to breathe and catch my breath. We talked for a bit and then my mill asked to come in. She profusely apologized to me, and although it's her daughter, she's still technically a grown woman and is responsible for her own actions. I explained to her that I don't know that I've done something wrong unless it's communicated to me, and the only reason I really knew that I had done something was because I texted her trying to communicate and it was taken poorly. I said that I had no ill intent whatsoever with sending the message, although I do understand how some things could have been taken negatively or as a dig on her end. I told both my fiancé and Mill that if I had any idea that this was how things were going to go, I would have never said anything. I told her I appreciated the thought of trying to help the situation, but at this point there was nothing I could say or do that would make the situation better, and I didn't feel comfortable staying, so we left. It's a hot mess and it honestly sucks that this is how it played out, but that's where things are at the moment and probably will stay for quite a while, so it is what it is. It goes without saying that she definitely won't be at the wedding, and now we're trying to decide if we want just our parents there or if we just want it to be the two of us. Update 3. It has been a couple weeks since that lunch where everything imploded, and I honestly thought that would be the bottom, but it turns out the bottom has a basement. The day after we left, my fiancé called his sister and told her very calmly that she was not invited to the wedding and that until there was a real, unprompted apology and some consistent change, he couldn't keep pretending things were okay. She laughed. Actually laughed and said, "You're seriously choosing her over blood?" And he said, "I'm choosing my peace." She told him he was dramatic and hung up. He blocked her. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and stayed like that for 3 days. His mom tried again in the gap that followed. She asked my fiancé to come over for dinner the next Thursday, just the four of us, her, Phil, Sil, and him, because she wanted them to hear each other without an audience. He went, and I stayed home and made pasta and stared at a wall. He came home with this look on his face that I hadn't seen before, some mix of angry and sad, and said the dinner was basically his parents trying to lay out how everything has escalated, and his sister giggling and scrolling on her phone and then snapping up every few minutes with things like she weaponizes anxiety and I'm not the family villain because I don't want to be besties with a weirdo. He lasted 30 minutes, told his mom he loved her but he wasn't sitting there to be called names, and left. On his way out his sister yelled after him, "We'll see if she still wants you when she gets bored," which, okay. 2 days later I got a message from her boyfriend. He apologized for the lunch, he made the food and then had to sit there too, and said he was sorry he brought up their argument like it was a reason things blew up. He told me he's been pushing her to see someone because she is spiraling and he's tired. He also told me she had created a private Instagram and had been posting about me there for months, screenshots of my posts, my captions, even clips of my engagement video with captions like "lol cringe." I wouldn't have seen it, but his cousin is on it and sent him a couple screenshots after the lunch and asked is she okay? He didn't send them to me, I told him please don't, but he said the point of telling me was so I didn't feel like I was imagining the malice. I cried for the weirdest reason after that, not because I was hurt, it's the internet, whatever, but because it suddenly made sense why I felt like I was walking into a trap all the time. It wasn't paranoia, there was actually a trap. After that we made a decision. We would get married quietly and legally soon and then do the bigger party later with friends when this isn't hanging over us. We told our parents that we wanted just the four of them at the courthouse and then a nice lunch. No siblings. No cousins. No surprises. His mom cried, his dad said whatever gives you peace. My mom asked for a color to wear and then brought me tulips. I bought a simple white slip dress and did my own hair in the mirror and felt like myself for the first time in weeks. We got the license and circled a date. We didn't tell anyone the date except our parents. We asked them not to tell anyone the date, especially his sister. We told them we didn't even want congratulations posts that day because we wanted to be ghosts. Everything was going exactly like that until the night before when I made the fatal mistake of using Find My to see what time. My fiancé was getting home from the gym because we were finishing our vows and I was pacing. I hadn't thought about the fact that he still shared his location with his family because they grew up doing that. He disabled it, but I had a pit in my stomach anyway. The morning of, my anxiety did a weird thing where it felt like it moved out of my body and was just floating next to me, watching. I put on my dress, he put on his suit, our parents met us in the lobby of the courthouse with flowers, and we went through security. We were waiting for the clerk to call our name when his mom's face just fell. She showed me her phone. It said I'm downstairs. I didn't even have to see the name. My fiancé and his dad walked out to the front and there she was in the middle of the lobby in a white sundress with giant sunglasses on like it was a bit. She told them you can't legally bar me, it's a courthouse and my fiancé said you're not coming in. She called me budget Meghan Markle and tried to walk around him. He stepped in front of her. It got loud enough that security looked over. His mom went outside and stood between her and the door and told her if she loved her brother she would go home. She said you made me like this. You're the reason he thinks this is normal and it was the first time I saw his mom look like she might break. Security ended up asking her to leave the building. She wasn't arrested or anything, they just explained that it's a small ceremony space and they couldn't have drama in the lobby and that if she didn't have official business she needed to come back another time. She left after telling my fiancé he would regret this forever and ever and ever, which sounded like something a witch says in a fairy tale, but then she stood across the street on the corner and just watched. I could see her on the corner when we were in the little room with the clerk. I told the clerk I'm sorry, this is really embarrassing, and she said we see everything. You'd be surprised. We said our vows. My hands shook and I messed up my line once and started laughing and then crying at the same time. His dad sniffled and pretended he had allergies. My mom cried so hard she made me cry harder and there's a photo of me laughing with mascara on my cheeks and I don't even care because it's the happiest ugly photo I've ever had. When the clerk pronounced us, I felt something drop out of my spine, like I had been carrying weight I didn't know I'd agreed to carry. When we walked out, she was gone. I don't know if she left or if my mill texted her and told her we were finished and to please not ruin the only thing. We took pictures on the steps, went to a little Italian place that my dad and I used to go to when I was little, and had champagne. After we ate, my fiancé sent one photo to the family group chat and said we did it. We're married. Love you. We both turned off our phones and went to a hotel downtown and took a nap. When I turned my phone back on that night there were 100 messages. Most of them were from his mom and my mom with hearts and crying faces and some from cousins. 2 were from weird numbers that were obviously her because of the cadence. You stole my family and you're pathetic for hiding like a criminal. I blocked them. There were 2 long texts from her boyfriend. The first one said he was sorry she showed up and he didn't know she was going to and that he wasn't there because he didn't want to choose and then he wrote I know it's not about me, but I can't do this anymore. The second one said they were taking a break. Apparently she went home after being removed from the courthouse and called him 22 times in a row and when he didn't answer, she threw his cologne out the window. He sent my fiancé a photo of the shattered bottle on the sidewalk and my fiancé joked I hated that smell anyway, which is maybe the first time we joked about any of this. The next morning, my mill knocked on our hotel door with coffee and a little box. She gave me her wedding earrings. She said she had wanted to give them to me the morning of but obviously the morning went sideways and she didn't want the earrings to be part of that energy. I stared at her ears because she didn't have piercings anymore and she laughed and said she stopped wearing anything years ago because she lost one earring and it made her sad. She said I don't want you to think we aren't doing anything. We took her key. I didn't know she still had a key to my fiancé's place and the idea made me nauseous, but his mom had already driven to their apartment after lunch the day before and made his sister hand over the spare. His mom also told me she told her flat out that she doesn't get to talk about me in the house anymore and that if she starts, she will be ending phone calls. I know people say consequences and it sounds like parenting a toddler, but in that moment I was grateful someone was parenting the toddler. The weirdest wrinkle this week was a long apology text from his sister that read like it was written by a pastor. It used words like contrition and breach in my heart posture and if you've ever gotten an apology that isn't an apology, you know the feeling. Your brain wants to accept it because the letters A, P, O, L, O, G, Y,
are there, but your body knows there's no humility in it.
The part that tipped it over was I hope you can acknowledge the role you played in the breakdown of our relationship, followed by I'm willing to put this aside for the wedding. I stared at that sentence for a very long time because it said the quiet part out loud. For the wedding. Not because she's sorry. Because she wants in. I wrote back, thank you for reaching out. We got married yesterday. I wish you well. She called me a liar. Then she posted a black square to her private and wrote I lost my brother today. Her boyfriend posted a picture of his dog and turned his comments off. We're staying off social media for a minute. The sense of relief is strange because it isn't clean. It's relief braided with grief for something that could have been easy and wasn't. We went over to his parents' house for dinner 2 nights after and it felt normal. His mom made roast chicken. No one whispered about anything. His dad asked about our honeymoon plans and my mom texted pictures of a beach house she found for a weekend in September and sent a link where you can rent paddle boards, and I realized at some point that I was telling a story about the clerk at the courthouse and laughing, and I wasn't looking over my shoulder to see if someone was rolling their eyes. The absence of tension is its own presence. I did get one more message from her last night. It was a voice note that started with I went to therapy and then I don't think you deserve an apology, but my therapist said I should tell you I'm jealous. The word jealous coming out of her mouth was like a pebble dropping in a glass of water. It didn't fix anything, but it made a tiny sound and then the water settled around it. I didn't respond. I don't have anything else in me to give to this. Maybe she will keep going and the pebble will turn into something else. Maybe not. Right now my job is to be married to the person I love and to keep the door to our life closed enough that no one can throw cologne through it. We're going to do a little backyard barbecue at my parents' house in September. Friends, cousins, his parents, my grandparents, no speeches, no bouquet, just burgers and music and a Polaroid on the picnic table. If she shows up, she won't be let in. That's not a threat, it's just how it's going to be. He keeps saying he's proud of us for protecting our day. I keep saying I wish any of this wasn't necessary. Both things can be true. We're moving into our place in December and I'm painting the kitchen the light green we both liked, and I bought a set of cheap white plates and the silly little butter dish that looks like a cow. When I think about my life, it looks like that kitchen with the sun coming in and the butter cow on the counter and not a single person in the doorway telling me I'm a mistake. I don't know what the next chapter with her looks like. For now there is the smallest beginning of a boundary that doesn't wobble when it's touched. For now there's us, and if the only thing I did right in all of this was step out of the way of a hurricane to get married in a little room with a clerk who's seen everything, then okay. That's enough. Update 4. The voice note about jealousy sat in my phone like a stone at the bottom of a glass. It didn't dissolve. It just changed the sound of everything when it clinked. We left it there and let the water go still around it. We decided we weren't doing the swirl anymore. No check-ins through third parties, no how is she? Reports disguised as small talk. He texted his parents that we were going low contact for a while and would love to see them for dinner, for walks, for anything that didn't involve a conference table vibe. They wrote back we understand so fast it was like they'd been typing it for months. Her boyfriend officially moved out that weekend. He texted my husband for help because most of his friends live out of state and he didn't want to do it alone with her there. I went and sat in the car with the windows cracked and a seltzer because I didn't trust myself not to go up if I heard shouting, and I also didn't trust myself to go up if I heard silence. The building was one of those brick boxes with a stairwell that smells like 1,000 dinners. I watched a lady walk her cat on a leash across the courtyard and wondered how you get a cat to agree to that. At one point a box came down the stairs labeled winter stuff and the tape gave up halfway and scarves spilled out like a magician's trick. My husband scooped them back in. Her boyfriend walked past my window with a laundry basket on his hip and mouthed, "Thank you," and I pretended to wipe my eye because I'm dramatic and there was nothing else to do with my hands. She came down once. Hair in a bun, big sunglasses like armor, one of those zip-up hoodies that zips from the top and the bottom so there's always a little triangle of stomach showing no matter what. She saw my husband and stopped on the landing 2 floors up and announced that if he was here, he could at least take her old dresser to the curb while he was playing martyr. He said he was here for the boyfriend. She said, "You're both pathetic," and then turned on her heel and stomped back up the stairs hard enough that dust floated down like glitter. My husband looked at me through the windshield with that face we both have now that's half "this is unbelievable" and half "of course it went like that." They loaded the last box. No one threw anything out the window. The boyfriend hugged my husband in the parking lot and then went very still for a second like when you stand up too fast and the world tilts, and then he got in his car and drove to his cousin's, and it was done. The relief that happens when something ends you've been braced for is its own kind of dizziness. The barbecue crept up like a tide you can't see moving until your ankles are wet. My mom bought too many buns and put them in the dryer to fluff, which is apparently a thing someone told her once at a PTA meeting in 2004 and she never let it go. We kept the address off everything. We told people to park 2 streets over and walk through the side gate. We set the table with those cheap white plates and a stack of paper napkins because the point wasn't pretty, it was ease. My grandpa showed up an hour early to be in charge of ice and also because he likes to be the first one to watch a party get built. He sat in the shade and told me that when my grandma was pregnant with my aunt, he painted their kitchen a color called seafoam and she cried because it looked like hospital jello, and then she loved it, and then they moved 3 years later, and that's basically what life is. I felt good in my body in a way that didn't feel like borrowed confidence. The kind that just sits there and breathes with you. We had a plan if she came. My husband and I wouldn't be the ones at the gate. My dad has the kind of voice that could tell a tornado to keep moving and it would pick another yard, so he and one of my cousins hung around the driveway sipping lemonade and talking about fantasy football like two golden retrievers guarding a bone. The first hour passed and it just looked like sunlight through leaves, you know? Kids chasing bubbles, my aunt misjudging the heat and putting a cheese board directly on the metal table so the breeze surrendered to the weather within 15 minutes, my husband's mom standing at the grill and shooing my dad away every time he tried to help by poking the burgers. The text came around too. Not to me. To my husband's mom. I'm close. That was all it said. She didn't show me right away. She closed her eyes for a second the way you do when you step into bright sun, and then she walked quietly to the side of the house and told my dad. He put his drink down like it was a prop in a play and let his shoulders go wide. We didn't call anyone. We didn't bolt the gate or turn off the music. We let it look like a normal Saturday because it was. She came in a white jean jacket with bride across the back in pearls. I laughed later when my brain could hold it, but in the moment it felt like watching someone walk across a church in a bathing suit. She had a gift bag in her hand with a single crinkled tissue paper puffing out and a card taped to the front that said olive branch in calligraphy. She tried to walk past my dad and he said, "Not today, kid," the way you say it to a dog nosing at the trash. He didn't touch her. He didn't raise his voice. He just made it clear with his body that the only way in involved direct contact with his sternum. She looked at my husband's mom then, and whatever she saw there told her the answer was also no. "I can't even give you a gift?" she said, like we were being rude hosts. My father-in-law stepped up then and said the same thing my husband had said at the courthouse, "You're not coming in." She rolled her eyes at all of them like it was 8th grade and they wouldn't let her sit at the cool table, and then swung the gift bag in a little circle and held it out to my mother-in-law like, "See? I'm trying." My mother-in-law shook her head. "No. Not like this." It was so gentle that for a second I thought maybe that would be the thing that landed. It didn't. She lifted the card off the bag, tore it in half, tucked the halves into the bag like she was filing them, and then walked back down the driveway. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She got in her car, rolled her window down, and yelled, "Have a nice life, Cal," like she'd been waiting to use the nickname for months. It would have stung if it wasn't perfect. My husband looked at me and mouthed butter and we both had to look at the sky for a second to keep it together. The bag was still sitting by the gate. No one wanted to touch it in case it was going to sprout a jack-in-the-box or a raccoon. Eventually my dad picked it up with 2 fingers like a spider and set it on the curb. We opened it after everyone left. It wasn't a bomb. It was an unframed 5x7 photo of my husband, maybe 10 years old, with a missing tooth, arms thrown around a very small version of her in a sprinkler. On the back she had written before and then scribbled it out so hard the paper feathered. I didn't know what to do with that kind of offering. I put it in a drawer. Maybe one day it will be a bridge, maybe it will always be a landmine. No one's day was ruined. That felt like the miracle. Someone's cousin started a conga line, someone's baby ate dirt and was fine, my grandma tried a White Claw and said it tasted like disappointment but she drank the whole thing. At some point the light through the trees went golden the way it does when it's about to leave and my husband put his hand on the back of my neck in that way that says, "You're here, keep being here," and I realized I hadn't checked the street in an hour. She posted a black and white Instagram story later that said families are complicated over a picture of her hand with a ring on it. I stared at it because I'm a human being and my brain loves patterns even when it's not my business. The caption below said "not that kind" with an eye roll and a crying laughing emoji, and I decided I wasn't going to spend my marriage deciphering posts that weren't meant for me and tossed my phone face down on the couch. My husband's phone buzzed and he looked at it and said she Venmo'd me $10 for gas and we both laughed until we were breathless. The next week was quiet in that way where you notice silence because your muscles have been trained for noise. His parents came over with a folding table and asked if we wanted to paint swatches on the living room wall because sometimes when you're grieving a shape of a person that still exists, all you can do is pick between sage and soft mint and call it progress. We booked a weekend in September at a tiny place near the water that had a picture of 2 plastic Adirondack chairs on the listing and we high-fived because we are, at our core, very simple. His mom started therapy for herself. She told me in the driveway like she was whispering a scandal, but the look on her face was just clean. I needed someone to tell me it's okay to shut my phone off, she said. I'll still love her when it's off. I wanted to frame that sentence. She texted him a poem one morning. It wasn't hers. It was that one about wolves people put on mugs. No context. He wrote back, "Please stop," and then put his phone on the mantle like he was putting it in timeout. Her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, he started correcting himself in messages and you could feel the tendon snap of that admission, dropped off a box that had ended up in his car by accident. It was my husband's old college notebooks, a mug from a beach trip, a framed photo of him and his dad fishing where they both look miserable but triumphant, like most pictures of fishing. The ex stood in our entryway for a minute and then said, "I went to my first therapy appointment," in the exact voice you use when you say I went to the DMV. You could tell he didn't expect a parade. I said I was proud of him anyway and he smiled at the floor and said, "She stood in the parking lot for 20 minutes and then left without going in, and then he lifted his hands like, "You definitely didn't ask, I just needed to put that somewhere." He and my husband hugged the way men hug when they've decided to be gentle with each other on purpose. The only actual contact we had with her was a letter. It came in one of those stiff envelopes good stationery companies use, and for a second I thought it was a wedding thank you from someone whose cursive I didn't recognize. My name was on it in that school teacher handwriting she has when she's trying to look official. Inside was 3 pages by hand, blue pen. If I had to give it a soundtrack, it would be a choir singing an apology while the strings under it played a horror movie. I am grieving the woman I thought you would be. I am in a season of refinement. I can see now where you triggered wounds that were already there. Every sentence was an I that turned into a you by the end. I made it halfway through and then found the line where she wrote, "I look forward to walking down the aisle behind you when you do it for real next year," and I put the letter back in the envelope so fast it made a paper bite on my thumbnail. I wrote one sentence back and mailed it the next morning. "We are not doing this again," with our return address on the back so there was no room for pretending I hadn't sent it. We did our weekend away, 2 chairs, a shoreline that looked like every other shoreline because they all undo you the same, a little restaurant where the waiter called us kids and we left an embarrassing tip because we wanted to be someone's good story. We brought one camera and a deck of cards and didn't mention anyone's name who wasn't present. The only time a phone moved was to take a picture of a seagull with one leg who still ran as fast as the 2-legged ones. The morning we left, a text came in from a number we didn't know that said, "She's telling people you faked the courthouse for attention." My husband turned his phone off and handed it to me and said, "I don't want to be reachable by rumor anymore," and it sounded like poetry, and also like common sense. We moved our timeline up. A unit in our building opened and our landlord offered us the bigger place 2 floors up if we wanted it because we're quiet and pay on time, which remains the sexiest compliment in the world to me now. We packed boxes and labeled them in Sharpie, and my husband put on an old playlist that made the afternoon feel like a college dorm, except instead of setting a bowl on fire by accident we learned to break down cardboard with our feet. We painted the kitchen that light green, and the first coat went on streaky like everything transitional. The second coat looked like it apologized for the first and meant it. My mom stood in the doorway holding the butter cow and asked where it should live, and I pointed, the left corner by the toaster, and she set it down like a cornerstone. The last thing we did before bed the first night was install a camera over our door. It wasn't about catching anyone. It was about looking at the rectangle of our own hallway and knowing that if something appeared there that shouldn't, we could say no, and mean it. His mom came by the next morning with bagels and a plant and looked around like she was memorizing it for a good dream. She didn't mention her daughter. She put the plant on the sill and asked where the light was best, and we made coffee and all 3 of us looked at the sun and agreed no one knows where light is going to land until it lands. There's still noise around the edges. A cousin sent a screenshot she shouldn't have sent because it didn't make my day better and then apologized and sent me a picture of her dog to fix it. A mutual friend asked if she could give out our address for a holiday card exchange and I said no and didn't explain. My husband's coworker mentioned in passing that his sister had stopped by the office to say hello and he told HR and then told me, and the look on his face was very steady in a way that told me we were learning. She hasn't messaged me again. She messaged him last week a photo of their childhood dog from 2013 and wrote remember when joy was easy, and he stared at it for a long time and then he put it in a folder labeled later and closed it. I don't know what later looks like. For now, later is not now. On Tuesday, the mail had a thick envelope from the county clerk. It was the certified copy of our marriage certificate that I'd forgotten I ordered. My name on it, his name on it, the date that already feels like a good word to say, crisp paper that made a sound like a quiet drum when I put it on the table. I slid it under a magnet on the fridge because the bureaucratic proof felt right next to the grocery list. If you looked at our kitchen right then you would have thought nothing had ever been hard here. A couple of mugs, a plant, a butter cow, 2 people who exhale at the same time. If you opened a drawer you would have found the photo from the sprinkler and the letter with all the swirly righteous handwriting in the envelope with the record of a choice we made because we needed to. When I think about her now, it's like looking at the ocean from a cliff. You know there are things down there, you know some of them are beautiful and some of them have teeth and most of them are neither, they're just there, being what they are. You can build a fence along the edge and it doesn't make the ocean less what it is. It just means you can stand there without plunging in. If she changes, if she really wants to, there will be a gate. For now it's a fence, painted the same light green as my kitchen in my head. For now there are mornings where my husband pushes his toes under my foot because our bed is cold and we both like the same corner of the couch and we're learning what each other's quiet looks like. That's the life I picked. That's the life I picked again and again. Every day we don't take the bait. The best part of all of this is so boring I wish I could dress it up. He left for work this morning and kissed me in the doorway and asked me to text him a picture of the butter cow when the light hits it around 9 because it looks like it's on stage. I sent him the picture. The light hit it the way it always does. I didn't check the street. I turned off the kettle at the first whistle and it didn't scream.